America is the most polarized it's been in over 150 years, probably. The last time we suspect it was as polarized as it is now was right after the Civil War. We now find that Republicans don't want their children to marry Democrats, and Democrats don't want their children to marry Republicans. That didn't used to be so. And that leads to great difficulty in having any kind of compromise because there's such strong feelings that the other party has absolutely the wrong policy prognostications. After the New Deal in the 1930s, the big difference in American politics between the parties was over class. That was your feelings about big business versus unions, about the rich versus the poor. And that led to some polarization between the parties, but it was stuff that could actually be overcome by money that would be given in terms of programs, so that even Republicans supported some of the social welfare programs that came out of the New Deal. And even the Democrats sometimes admitted, as Bill Clinton did, that maybe we had to be careful about not spending too much money. So there were ways to get over those divisions. Starting in the 70s and 80s, religion became an important difference in American politics. That's partly because what happened is the Civil Rights Acts of the 60s caused the South, which had been Democratic, to start going Republican. And then all of the evangelical Christians, mostly Baptists in the South, started to find they had common cause with the evangelical Christians in the Midwest, who were mostly Methodists. And those groups started to get together, have common cause, and we start finding a difference between the parties in terms of religion and religious values. So abortion was important, gay rights was important, prayer in the schools was important. And with that new set of concerns, they were more than just about who gets the money. It was about values and about basic issues of what you think the world should look like. And those kinds of divisions, those are not issues that you sort of can go halfway. You can't say, well, let's go halfway on gay rights or let's go halfway on abortion. There's really sort of no middle ground. You either believe that gay marriage is a good idea or you don't. You either believe abortion is something that a woman should have the right to do or not. And so there was no area of compromise. And so that led to greater polarization. One of the things that's most disconcerting to me is we look at data over time when people are asked about do they trust the military, religious institutions, science, higher education, police, and so forth, is that we've found there's tremendous polarization now in opinions of those institutions. There wasn't much 30 or 40, 50 years ago in the 1970s. Now we find tremendous polarization where Democrats think that journalists, higher education, and science can be trusted. And Republicans think the military, police, and religious institutions can be trusted, and the other side doesn't. That worries me fundamentally because it's one thing not to trust big business or labor, because that's really sort of an issue about money and who gets the money. Science, journalism, and higher education are about knowledge and facts. Religion, the military, and police are about values. And if we really disagree on values and facts, there's really not much room for getting together and agreeing on anything. One answer might be, by the way, better civics courses. We do a terrible job in America right now with civics, and we don't teach people about civics. And when we do teach them about civics, we say, memorize a piece of the Constitution. What we should be teaching them is, how do you tell if something's true or false? What news sources might help you figure out what's true or false? How do you figure out if something is really just a vicious attempt on the part of somebody to do something mean and nasty? And we don't teach those skills, I think, enough in our schools. And if we did more of that, we might be able to overcome some of the problems we have. All of us at the Goldman School, we do a variety of different types of research. One of the major ways we do research is we collect data. And we go out and we do surveys, or we get administrative data, or we get internet data, or we get sensor data even. And we put those data together, and we often link them across various fields of endeavor and try to then use the data to figure out what's going on with people. We also look for what are called natural experiments, where in Hillary Hoynes' work, for example, where she was looking at food stamps, she looked for places which were adjoining counties. One county started the food stamp program, and the other county waited a few years to do that. And then she compares children who in the one county got food stamps and children in the other county didn't get food stamps, sees what happens 30 years later, finds differences and says, well, what was the difference between those two counties? One got food stamps, one didn't. that must be the case that the food stamps made the difference. So we're trying to look for leverage where we can actually make what we call causal statements. The food stamps program caused the children to be healthier, which caused them to be healthier as adults, which in the long run made them better off. So we're thinking very, very hard about first describing the situation well with data that's representative, and second, trying to infer what the causes are of public programs. That allows us to say to policymakers, we know that if you do more of this program, it will cause these things to happen. We're open to anything that's what we would call empirical. That is, gather data, find out about how the world works, and be very tough-minded about coming to conclusions. Don't let your ideology be your guide. Just because you think this might work, given what your partisan perspective is not a good basis. And in fact, we guard very assiduously against that. And our goal is to make sure we have reliable statements about what will make the world a better place.